It's about 12:02, so I think we're going to get started because I want to use the full time with our panelists. So I know some people are joining, but thank you for coming. So hello, everyone. Welcome to the DAYL Transactional Law Committee's CLE presentation, Inside Out, Perspectives of In-House Counsel on Working with Outside Counsel. My name is Matthew Fosheim. I will be today's moderator for the panel discussion. The goal for today's CLE is to provide insights that an in-house attorney and outside counsel can use to improve their working relationship. We will discuss best practices when working with in-house or outside counsel, including establish appropriate timelines, best practices for effective communication, and facilitating an effective partnership between in-house and outside counsel. Before we begin the panel discussion, I'd like to thank the DAYL Transactional Law Committee Board. Those members include Robert Banowski, Robin Ladd, Rahila Ashan, and myself. I'd like to give a special thank you to Sherry Harris for all of her assistance as well in helping procure today's speakers. So today we have the privilege of hearing from two former DAYL presidents who continue to give back to the organization even after serving their terms, and we're very grateful for them. Our first panelist is Dina Stroh. She's the General Counsel and Ethics Officer of the North Texas Tollway Authority. With over 2 decades of experience as a general counsel and litigation partner, Dina has established herself as an adept problem solver and skilled litigator with experience in contract negotiation, legal strategy, business advice, and risk management. Before working at NTTA, Dina served as general counsel and corporate secretary for Murchison Oil and Gas and a partner at Carrington Coleman. Besides her legal work, Dina gives back to the Dallas community through her volunteer work for the Dallas Women's Foundation and Dallas Area Habitat for Humanity. Our second panelist is Stephanie Culpepper, Deputy GC at Lument. Lument is a leading investment and mortgage banking firm that serves the multifamily and affordable housing, senior living, and healthcare markets. Before transitioning to Lument, Stephanie was working as senior managing counsel and director of legal operations at Oryx Corporation USA. And prior to that, she served as partner at both Foss Brown Todd and Bell Nunnally. So Stephanie, Dina, we thank you both for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
Happy to be here.
So everyone else virtually, please get ready to be inspired and empowered to improve your practice with Inside Out, perspectives from in-house counsel on working with outside counsel. We do have the Q&A open. If you would like to ask questions, we'll get to those at the very end. I think we've got a broad range of topics that should cover most of them, but feel free to put questions in the chat and we'll look at them at the end if they haven't been asked. And the CLE number will be at the end of the presentation and the group chat as well. So our first question is, I will go to you, Stephanie. Why do corporations even use outside counsel? Many talented law firms want to work in-house. Plenty of excellent students graduate from law school each year. Why not hire enough competent attorneys internally to handle all of a corporation's legal matters?
So it depends on the company in terms of how big their in-house legal department is. And there is, in the financial services industry, we call it the Goldman model, where Goldman Sachs, for example, they hire a lot of in-house lawyers. They have a huge legal department and they do handle a lot of their matters in-house. I think it becomes complicated working for just one client, one company. There's a number of issues that may come up. And so having a team that can handle all of those issues, I would wager is next to impossible. So you might have issues related to cybersecurity, employment benefits, corporate issues, securities litigation. There's just a number of things that you really need to have specialty lawyers handling them. And so it, in the end, becomes more cost effective. There may not be enough time in the day for your team, your in-house counsel team, to handle everything. And so sending work out, engaging with outside counsel just becomes necessary.
Dina, what are your thoughts on why NTTA does not hire or hires outside counsel?
Yeah, so I kind of following up on what Stephanie had said, the NTTA way, and it's driven a lot by our engineers, is we work with outside folks. If you think of how a construction project works, you've got the design engineers who design a project, you have a general contractor who builds the project. Well, there's oversight at NTTA, but it's oversight as opposed to doing the design work at the construction work. Well, it's the same concept in legal department. We have 2 lawyers. So that is why we work with outside counsel, because there's 2 of us. So similar to what Stephanie had said about the specialties, if you think of someone with a specialty, let's go as deep as going in and objecting to the evaluation of for taxes for your building. That is a very specialized area. Maybe I need that. Maybe Stephanie needs that, but you don't need someone with that very, very specialized area to be at the entity, because that's going to come up once in a blue moon. And so I see of the lawyers at NTT as generalists, that we know this much about this much. Like we know a little about a lot, but that helps us with the issue spotting and then getting the right outside counsel to do the work that we need to position NTT in the best possible way.
So I'm going to jump to you, Dina, for this next question, and it's piggybacking off the first question. You both have very different practices as GCs. What type of work is typically sent to outside counsel by your organization?
So that's a great question. I will say NTTA hires lawyers in 2 general ways. One of them is legal services procurement. We're at the tail end of that. And that is when we put out into the world, hey, we do a lot of different type of work. And I'm going to list some of those. But unfortunately, to all the young lawyers on here, that opportunity is closed. And then I'll talk about the other opportunity. So employment law and litigation, construction, contracts, corporate governance, government representation, collections, bankruptcy, litigation, non-employment, real estate and environmental, intellectual property, software, data security, insurance. That's a lot, right? That's a mouthful, but that's generally what we send out to outside counsel. The other way that you get hired by NTTA is you are an expert in your area of law. So what you didn't hear me just read out was tax. That doesn't come up often, but it does come up, and I will go to a tax specialist. Immigration, it comes up maybe every 3 months, maybe every 6 months. It occasionally comes up. So we have separate engagement agreements with lawyers to handle specific, certain, usually niche areas. And it could be anything as it comes up. I mean, we'll see on AI, is that going to be a niche practice area? Is that going to be a practice area that every firm is going to have? I think over time, we're going to see what that's going to look like. I'll also add, there's one area of something I will send out to outside counsel that I call it in my head, it needs to be board proof. What does this mean? You have a very high level allegation related to one of my peers, the CEO, a board member. I will absolutely go to outside counsel for that for a couple of reasons. One, I don't want to be a witness. Like, I don't want to play that game. 2, it allows there to be an independent perspective. And 3, that's kind of what the board expects. And so there's sometimes the projects that I send out are specific to knowing this could go in front of my board, and I'll be, and unfortunately not likely to be a young lawyer. They may be in the room with a more senior lawyer, but that is someone that the board is expecting at a very high level to do an investigation, research, whatever it is.
Yep. And I can add on to that, Matthew, if you'd like.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Dina touched on the specialization and maybe the bigger matters, more sensitive, that need, a certain name attached to it. So I'll just add on to that. So as a lender, we do a number of transactions. So just the sheer volume of activity that happens at the firm, that's a reason for us to engage outside counsel. So as both an agency lender originating loans for Fannie, Freddie, and HUD, and then even on our balance sheet, we have 6,600 loans on our portfolio. And that's not something that, we're a team of 6 lawyers at a company of 600 people. We're not going to be handling those transactions. Just don't even have the administrative function. We don't have, a paralegal, for example, to help us with title survey, just to get even more specific. So it just makes sense to engage outside counsel. We may partner with them, and there's a different level of how much we as internal counsel are involved in managing, we call it outside counsel, because we might have particular insight to share, but and we know the company best, but we still, for the day-to-day and a lot of the legwork, it has to go outside.
So transitioning from the type of work that's sent out, we're going to transition to what type of firms you guys as outside counsel choose. So bigger firms are not necessarily better than smaller firms. For some legal challenges, such as class action lawsuits or certain cross-border transactions, the person power that a larger firm can provide may be needed. Moreover, many JCs believe hiring a prestigious law firm provides them with a certain cover should the complicated transaction or litigation prove unsuccessful, as you both were mentioning here. However, large firms don't have a monopoly on legal talent, nor on the best legal talent. Many small and mid-sized firms can be extremely attractive because they are particularly adept at understanding the importance of relationships and offering an ease of doing business that a big law firm does not. Is a bigger firm better than a smaller firm when choosing outside counsel? What are the advantages and disadvantages? And do you have any personal preferences? Stephanie.
Okay, so so I would say that the advantages to, and both Dina and I were partners at mid-size local firms. And so I think we can help speak to this directly when we were trying to originate business. But billable rates, certainly when you're talking cost effectiveness, and that's something as in-house counsel, our clients are always talking about being fee sensitive, no matter what it is. And so we're sensitive to that because we want to keep our clients happy. So cost effectiveness, being able to work on budgets. For me too, it's also, I think there can be a real advantage to the mid-size or smaller firm model when you're talking about the relationship aspect of working with outside counsel. You know, if I'm going to large New York-based law firm, they may not be very quick to take my call or get back to me on something because I'm not their most important client. And so, you know, we as in-house counsel, we want to feel a little special. And so it helps to have that personal relationship, and that's easier to build, and you feel just more valued with that maybe smaller firm. And similarly, if you're local, you can further build on that relationship where going to lunch or coffee or, you know, connecting at various events, and it helps that personal connection aspect, and that helps with building trust and working with outside counsel.
Dina, what are the advantages or disadvantages when choosing a bigger or smaller firm?
So I took a quick look at the attendee list, and it looks like you've got big firm, small firm, you've got a whole mix. So I was at Carrington Coleman, which got up to 100 lawyers when I was there. And then I was at Gerber Hurst, and then I was at a tiny little plaintiff's firm for a while before I went in-house. So I've experienced different size firms. I feel like at the smallest firm, you can be flexible on what you take. The larger firms, you're going to have more issues with conflicts. You're going to have more issues with even origination, with partners, that type of thing. A smaller firm, you can be a lot more nimble and a lot more flexible, including on fees. So I'm going to repeat what Stephanie said. I will tell you, I've now been in-house over a dozen years, and the amount that people charge is somewhat shocking to me, because right now, first-year associates are paid what partners were when I first started in-house, and that was only 12 years ago, right? And so that the kind of exponential increase of the cost of legal services is something that is not sustainable, and there's usually a market correction. That market correction usually looks like corporations hire more people in-house to do the real work. So we may be heading for a market correction. If we are. So that's one of the disadvantages for one of the big firms. The smaller firms, I think that on the fee side, on sometimes their availability, but sometimes not their availability, because if you are at a small firm and it's just you only have 24 hours in a day, and it turns out you need to sleep. So a big firm might have more opportunity to have the people to do the work that you need to have done. I do find I hire according to people who do a good job, who are responsive, who I trust, all the things that Stephanie had said. They can be at big firms, they can be at medium-sized firms, they can be at large firms. For me, it's the quality of the work and the responsiveness is key. I truly joking with one of my outside counsel that I was like, what, you have other clients? Right. Of course, I know he's got other clients, but the reason it's joking is because he pays so much attention to my work and what I need that I feel like it's almost like I'm the only client. And that's really, whether you're at a big firm, a small firm, a medium-sized firm, doesn't matter. That's the trick right there.
Yeah,
So-
and just to reiterate that we hire people, not firms, essentially, except for this whole certain name associated with it. That's the people are what's important.
So I think that dovetails really nicely into the next question, both of your comments. And when we're talking about how, what do you look for in selecting outside counsel? You both mentioned fees, top quality legal work, specialization. So legal services are largely a commodity offered in extremely competitive environments where attorneys will be expected to go out and produce a book of business. Thousands of competent lawyers are experts in their respective fields and professionals in every sense of the word. So what criteria does in-house counsel use in selecting outside counsel? You mentioned top quality work, specialization, and fees. Are there any others? Tina.
Yeah, I mean, so that the relationship of trust is really important. I've heard from some young lawyers, well, I can't go develop business because I'm not a partner. I don't have the title. I think the title can help, but I'll tell you, I have seen some young lawyers develop business in a way who now have their own firm that I was shocked, to be honest. I'm like, got all that work. That's amazing. Like, so I would encourage every one of you to do it now. I mean, here's the thing. If you're a young lawyer, you're not really expected to bring work in yet. And so try whatever works, right? I mean, make the pitch, bring in a partner with you, pitch somebody else, see what works, because it's honing your skills for the point at which that you're going to need it later. And I'm going to tell a story about a younger lawyer. There was a younger lawyer I was talking to, this is a while ago now. She's since taken the bench, interestingly enough, but she told me that, oh, well, my best friend is in-house, but I just don't want to ruin our friendship by asking for work. And I was like, she trusts you. Why wouldn't she give you work? She of course wants to give you work. Not only does she want you as her friend to succeed in life, more importantly, from the in-house perspective, there's the level of trust. If you lose my trust, you may never do my work again. But how can you gain my trust? And that's kind of where you're going, of like, how do I choose someone when I have the ability to choose? How do I choose someone? I know that they do a good job. What does that mean? I have hired many lawyers that I've met through DAYL, to be honest. They are, in fact, a referral source for me. They're also people I send work to. For the larger firms that I work with, if there's someone that is, for instance, in DAYL leadership class, and I encourage anyone who has not been in the DAYL leadership class, I know the applications are coming out soon, please do that. I literally put a young lawyer on one of my matters because I met that young lawyer through DAYL leadership class. So it's how do you meet people? How do you know people? How do you impress people? Well, people know who you are. You also have to do good work. That is table stakes, no question about that. And be nimble, be creative, be cost effective, good value. Responsiveness is key. Any of those things stop happening, and I'm less likely to use that lawyer and possibly that firm.
Stephanie, do you have any comments on why, what type of criteria in-house counsel use in selecting outside counsel, and maybe discuss a little bit about willingness to enter into alternative fee arrangements as well?
Okay, yeah. So I think, so just speaking to that specifically, yes, I think there's a certain amount of, if you're able to show creativity in billing, for us, you know, we have, and we're going to get to this a little bit later, but we have an approved council list. To be on that approved council list, or the expectation once you're on is that there'll be a certain discount offered, you know, off your top billing rate. And so I think, but that's, it's a reciprocal relationship where it's like, you're going to be on our list. We're going to be sending you work in a certain volume of work, right? And so in return, we're looking for some kind of discount on fees. So I think that to the extent that can be offered, that's helpful. You know, past that, I mean, Dina touched on all the various aspects. There's not a whole lot more to add. I will say for us, and this is unique and not something that can be done as a young lawyer, but so some of our work, we are looking at firms that have relationships with external parties. So I mentioned this Fannie, Freddie, HUD. Okay, so nothing we can do here in Dallas, but these are firms based in DC, or they have, you know, Fannie has an office here. They've got relationships with some external parties that we're interested in doing business with, essentially. So, you know, that's one additional element, if I could add any, but Dina touched on all the major ones.
Let me
Yeah.
add two more, if you don't mind, Matthew. So one of the important things at NTTA is diversity. So I am looking at diversity. I'm looking at diversity in the lawyer, but I think y'all probably know that NTTA is a governmental entity, and what counts from an NTTA perspective is actually the ownership of the firm. So it's something I pay attention to, but I'm also looking in diversity in experience levels, because I do understand, like I have given an oral argument in front of the Dallas Court of Appeals to a younger lawyer who was not a partner, because number one, I think it's important for training. Number two, I thought she would do it and do a great job. She in fact did. And it also allows it to be a little bit more cost effective if you've got younger lawyers who are able to handle work, can be pushed down. Also, we look at geographic diversity. So NTTA is over 4 member counties plus Ellis and Johnson counties. I am looking, and my board members are from those 4 counties. They are looking for me to hire lawyers geographically, and by geographically, I mean in those 4 member counties.
Mhm.
And so that's something that I look at as well.
Okay, so outside counsel can be selected in a variety of ways, as both of you mentioned, but Dina, I'll start with you again this time. What methods are used to select outside counsel, and what are their advantages and disadvantage of these types of methods? You had mentioned the unique process that NTTA does and goes through in selecting the type of counsel that they use, because being a government entity. So we'll start with
Yeah,
you.
I'm not sure that's necessarily unique. I think how we end up doing it procedurally is unique, but that when you put out an RFP or for a request for proposal regarding legal services, I think any type of company can do that. And now, I think what does make us a little bit different is because we only have 2 lawyers, the evaluation committee for that is actually the top executives at NTTA. So if you think about non-lawyers reading your submission, something to think about, right? So yes,
Know your
lawyers are
audience.
reading, but
Yeah.
but yeah, so lawyers and non-lawyers are maybe reading what you've submitted. That's something to know before you submit an RFP. That is certainly one way to do it. I also all the time ask for, and I many times ask others for referrals. So who do you know in this type of area? As an example, and this is all very public information, eventually we'll be doing some right-of-way work related to one of our roadways that's going to be extended. And I haven't had to do that since I've been at NTTA, because we've been building within our right of way. And so I've been talking to other in-house counsel about, right, who do you use? What are some of the issues? We're gonna have environmental, what do I have to think about? So we talk, in-house counsel talk. If you do a phenomenal job for Stephanie, and then hey, Stephanie, do you have anyone who does blah, blah, blah area investigations, works with audit, whatever, doesn't matter what. And Stephanie will recommend you because she thinks you did a great job. So I think that's very important of always do a good job. I don't care what level you are in the practice of law, whether it's your first day in your first law firm or it's your last day and you're about to retire, it doesn't matter. Do good work because that's your reputation is paramount. You also have, when I started at NTTA, there was one of the law firms wrote our statute. And so we still work with them. So you always you inherit lawyers as well when you start in a GC role, unless you're a startup and starting with the company, you're going to end up with, preferences either from your board or CEO or people who've been there a long time. And those law firms, in fact, have done good work. And that's in fact why you're still working with them. So that's another way you end up with lawyers.
So Stephanie, what methods does Lument use to select outside counsel?
So we have, I mentioned this approved counsel list. And so that's something, you do inherit certain lawyers. There's a list. It's been well vetted. It's firms that either have, we're talking going back to the big firm that have a national presence. And so it's something that it's maybe they've got all the different expertise we could possibly think of. And then there's the specialists that, okay, the big firm didn't have this and we need these things. But firms come on and off the list, and there's a certain process around that, certainly. So, and that's our starting point, though. We look at the approved list. If we need something and it's not on there, we have, and this is just in terms of a practice tip for the young lawyers, there have been times when it's been attended a CLE over a topic that I was interested in. I'm looking for attorneys in it. And we followed up with that attorney and said, we're interested in learning more. Let's talk about potentially working with you. I am constantly, if there's an issue that I'm doing some simple Google searching and I come across an article that's been read or written on the topic, I have reached out to or have someone else reach out to someone who authored this paper on the topic. So all of that to say, I remember as a young lawyer, this idea of presentations and preparing papers, it's such a drag, but to the extent you can actually, it's on the internet or there's some way, you can get published. There are people, and this is in other cities too. So there could be someone in Chicago right now who's Googling to try to find something and they might be interested in a paper that you wrote on a topic. So, so think about that. The other thing, when we're getting to, okay, so there's a referral or even just the CLE and I want to learn more about you, make sure that your firm bio is up to date and that it's interesting and that you've got you spend some time on your representative transactions and matters. Again, I hated doing that when I was at a firm. It was something where it's like, you've closed a deal and maybe you don't want to think about it again. But, was there something unique about that? Or is there something that some buzzwords that when someone does search for you and they give a quick scan of your bio, you're really standing out to them? Because if it just says I'm a commercial litigator, that's a dime a dozen, you're going to move on to the next. So firm bio and LinkedIn. We're looking up people on LinkedIn. If I'm doing some further vetting before I call, I'm going to see what does your profile say. So easy tips to get in front of somebody.
I'm going to add to the firm bio of make sure that people that you meet know what you do. I'll give an example of how it worked and how it didn't work. So how it didn't work, I got a call maybe 5 years after I'd met someone. He was a facilitator for Leadership Dallas. So I saw him every month for a year. I had no idea he was a lawyer. No idea. And that about a third of our Leadership Dallas class was lawyers. I'm like, wait, what? So when I'm getting a call about him, it is, he's talking to one of the law firms I had worked at. And I literally said, I had no idea he was a lawyer and he was an IP lawyer. So it's a niche area. Like I should have known this. So please make sure your elevator speech people know what you're doing. Now, on the flip side of this, someone who's done this very well, and it's an area that was a specific area, and that's, I'm going to name a name, Ross Williams, Bell Nunnally. He told me that he does work on collecting judgments. I have done that type of work in my litigation past, and it's kind of not the most pleasant work to do, right? But if you've got someone with an expertise in it, having done it myself, and we were talking about it, I was like, oh, so he gave me his elevator speech. I had a need. He now does that work for me when I need it. So that's an example of someone who's doing it well. Make sure people, number one, know you're a lawyer. That's helpful. But number two, know your practice area, particularly if it whatever you've done in your practice has either a niche area or you've just gone to trial. And so your trial skills are honed, you argue the jury, whatever it is, make sure people know what you do.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. Make sure people know that you're a lawyer, but specifically what practice area you're in, so they're not asking you to help with your family's traffic violations or anything like that. So young attorneys may want to use connections at networking events, such as the numerous DAYL socials. I believe there's one tonight at the Playwright Club in downtown Dallas. So quick plug to that. So you can use these socials to meet other talented professionals. Some will certainly want to bring new clients to their firm to show that they're capable of attracting business. What are some of the barriers to entry for attorneys to become outside counsel for a company? Stephanie, why don't you start us?
Yeah, so I think, look, as a young lawyer, there is a certain disadvantage, your youth, your years of experience, it is something, but that will change. So this is something that, in going to a DAYL social or networking event, get to know people now. We talk about relationships, start building those relationships, get on a DAYL committee, start working with people at different firms, because you never know where that relationship may lead. Somebody that you meet today may be the general counsel of a company and call it 10 to 15 years. It's a long game. And so I think keeping up with people, building relationships now and keeping up with them is important. And then, to that end, I think when you do get out and network and connect with people, so say you're on a DAYL committee, Dina kind of touched on this, make sure you're doing a good job, that if you take on a certain responsibility, that you're seeing it through, because it's something that if for whatever reason you didn't come across as very reliable to me back in the day when we were all in a DAYL committee together, it's just, it may be held against you at a later date. And so to the extent you are meeting people and building those relationships, always, best foot forward in what you do.
Tina, what about you?
So Matthew had made a joke about you might get those questions about family law and probate and that type of stuff. I actually see those as opportunities because at least number one, that person knows you're a lawyer. Yay. But make sure you've got your referral list because inevitably, whether it's a family member, whether it's in-house counsel, there's people will ask you for who does this area of law, who does that area of law. And that to me is an opportunity to be of assistance. And that's kind of what we do, right? That is our profession. We help other people, and helping other people means that if they need to find someone else to help them, that you help facilitate that. I think that's an important value add, particularly for young lawyers. If you become the person that people go to for suggestions on family lawyers or probate lawyers in your firm or outside your firm, it doesn't matter. You become the person that they go to on that. And that is actually pretty important. Let me see that there are other things that I'm just going to toss out because I completely agree with all the things that Stephanie had said. Also, to this day, I'm not 100% great on it, but I try to send holiday cards. I send personal holiday cards, and then I send professional holiday cards. And back when I was at a law firm, I sent both. I'm lucky to get one out. In fact, in 2023, I did not get any out. It was very sad. But it has a couple of benefits. It keeps me on top of mind. You think, why are you still, Dina? Here you are, general counsel. You've been at NTTA for 9 years. Why are you still networking? And my answer is, you never know what's going to happen. Right. So I need to be prepared, and I need to be able to know that people know who I am in case, say I went and interviewed for your job at your firm. And so the partner say, hey, anyone know Dina? You can be like, oh yeah, I know Dina. She sent me a little note about my presentation I did. Like I try, when I have time, I try to do those things. I'm going to encourage y'all to do it too. It doesn't have to be holiday cards. It can be writing an article that you send out. I know at my last in-house position, there was a young lawyer in particular who would send me employment law related just blurbs about things that are coming up. And if you're a solo GC, people always do people things. And I can't even tell you how much I appreciate it. There wasn't an opportunity for me to give this young lawyer business, and he stopped doing it. And I wish he didn't because it was helpful. Now, from y'all's perspective, it would be good to know, is this something of someone deletes, it irritates them? Is it something you move right along? Is it something they affirmatively like? I mean, if you know someone well enough to ask that question, you might ask that question. But the fact that I was able to take information I got from little blurbs that just, probably from his firm wrote, take the information from that little blurb and implement it into my practice area and working with my executives was hugely important. So that's going to be something I want you to think about as a young lawyer. Like, what are the things that you're good at, that you like to do, that you'd like to replicate? Because that's what this is. Do you want to go meet all the people? Go meet all the people. Go be in a DIY leadership class. Go to all the socials. Go be on whatever boards, whatever organizations. If you're a little bit more quiet, like have those like big connections, the one-on-one connections with someone that maybe you want to do their work someday. I mean, build that relationship with them. There's, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, it doesn't matter. You still can build a book of business as a young lawyer and throughout your career.
Yeah, I think you're getting to an important part, which is how does a young attorney go about increasing your visibility to the market? It's not just your family and friends. So since you've touched on that some, Dina, Stephanie, why don't you jump in? What are some of the best ways that an attorney can increase their visibility to prospective clients?
Yeah, so kind of touched on it some with this CLEs, lunch and learns. It could be
Can
articles.
you describe a lunch and learn? I don't know if everybody knows what a lunch and learn necessarily means as a term.
Sure. So, well, it could be, I guess I think of it as, I mean, to me, this is a lunch, like this could be a lunch and learn, but it could also I have seen firms or attorneys that say, hey, you're a real estate lender. I think this might be a topic of interest. Why don't we bring lunch to your in-house legal department and give a presentation, and everybody, your in-house counsel, gets CLE credit, which is hard for us because it's hard for us to even leave our desk. It's a lot of days, very busy during business hours. So it's this offer of, you're going to be feeding people, which people always appreciate and like, and then you're giving them CLE credit, and you're speaking on a topic so that whenever that might come up, for us right now, right, there's a lot of market stress. So maybe it's bankruptcy or workouts or something that maybe we're not dealing with right now, but maybe it could be coming in the future. So it just, feeds that level of interest, and it gets your foot in the door, and it's just a nice offer in general. So that's one way. Increased visibility. I mentioned articles. I think that could be increased visibility nationally, and don't have to be in the room with somebody. We talked about DAYL committees, but there's also, Dina mentioned leadership. Dallas, what is it called, Dina? I'm forgetting the leadership class that's more on the
Leadership Dallas.
Leadership Dallas. Yeah. I mean, there's things like that, or there's nonprofit boards, or but you have to be true to Dina's point of what you enjoy, because that's going to shine through. So I used to, as a young lawyer, I was really involved in the arts community. I really liked the Dallas Museum of Art has a junior professional, group. And I think almost all of the organizations across Dallas, there's a lot of young professional groups out there. And so maybe there's one that it's not just lawyers, maybe there's, certain future business leaders that you might meet. So that's another opportunity.
Yeah, you think of Junior Chamber, you think of Habitat, they've got a young professionals group. There's a lot of different young professionals groups. And then you never know. I mean, I don't know about you, Stephanie, but I never thought I was going to be general counsel.
No, I did not. I mean, even going in-house, now I'm going to go in-house, but this idea of, no, I did not think I would be here at that time.
Yeah.
So, it's why it's good to meet people early and keep up with people. So not even just go to these things and meet them, but then you need to keep in touch. Like that's just like you heard in law school. I'm sure people talked about, I know they did back in the day where it was this, look at your law student colleagues and treat them with a certain amount of respect, and you never know where they're going to be. Well, it's the same in any of these board community activities that you're doing.
Yeah, I'll also say there every once in a while there's something that surprises me, which is I've been program chair for a number of in-house CLE programs. So Corporate Counsel Institute that's put on by UT-CLE, Advanced In-House and In-House 101 that's put on by the State Board, Texas General Counsel Forum. They've got annual conference. I am always surprised that I see way more in-house lawyers than outside law firms there. And these are where your clients are, right? Like I'm always perplexed. So if I ever went back out at a law firm, I would be attending these things and meeting the people and shaking the hands and getting their cards and following up with them and sending the newsletters of whatever firm I would land at if I ever do go back to a law firm. These are the things that I would do because again, it's almost like when I worked at the Laura Ashley Home Store at North Park Mall when I was in college, and you never knew which person was going to walk in and buy $2,000 worth of bedding. You had no idea, right? So you're friendly to everybody. You're helpful to everybody because you never know. Same concept applies to legal services.
And just to reiterate for people taking notes, so Texas General Counsel Forum, that's a really good one. And Dean and I are both involved in that one. And the ACC, I think those are the two you see a lot of. Was there any others, Dina, that you?
Yeah, the others are more CLE programs.
Yeah, that's where you'll see outside counsel, but to Dina's point, not that many. So those are ones, there's some opportunity there. So you heard it here first.
Well, I think we're going to kind of shift the discussion a little bit and talk about sometimes what's called a love-hate relationship between outside counsel and in-house counsel. So what pet peeves do you have as an in-house counsel when working with outside counsel?
Can I first say something?
Yeah.
I don't know if y'all know this. There is a Love Your Lawyer Day. It is the first Friday of November. It also happens to be the day that the Dallas Bar Association has their annual meeting. So I actually send little notes to my lawyers on Love Your Lawyer Day. So I'm going to take a little bit of issuance with love hates. The lawyers I work with are fantastic, Matthew.
I know.
Yes, I mean, it's probably a strong term.
Yeah.
But I think pet peeves is not as strong of a term. I think everybody has pet peeves.
Sure.
How to build a appropriate relationship. There's how to feed off of each other, both in and house, where you're both anticipating and supporting each other. So what are some of your pet peeves that you guys have? Dina, I'll let you start.
Okay. So these are lawyers I no longer work with. Is really what they are, Matthew.
Yes.
So this is going to sound terrible. I'm still going to say it, but at core, if you think about outside counsel, is the job of an outside lawyer to make the in-house counsel look good, right? Whatever it is. That could be, I'll tell you some of the areas that I've actually gotten the best information from outside counsel have been in the footnotes. That where they just kind of drop a footnote like, oh, there's constitutional implications about this. I'm like, yeah, I know I told you to write this memo. Tell me about this footnote. So think about things that may be outside of the exact question that's asked, but maybe in the spirit of what is asked. I think that's really helpful. And that's how I approach my job. Of my business people may not, they'll ask a question, but what they really mean is this whole thing okay to do? Not is this one little tiny thing okay to do? But outside counsel, you're the experts. This is how I'm seeing it. Remember when I said I know this much about this much? Well, you know this much, maybe about this much, and you know way more than I do. You do, because number one, you're in it. Number two, I'm a generalist, you're a specialist. And so anything that you know that you think might be helpful, you know, casually drop it. Let me know. Put in a footnote. It'll catch my attention once I have a chance to read that memo, that type of thing. No surprises is really important. I don't want to be surprised. And that's anything. I don't want to have to follow up if I give you a project. I don't want to have to be the one that emails you. I want you to let me know if you're going to miss a deadline, like, or where things are, be proactive. If I don't tell you when I need something, remind me, hey, what's your deadline on this, Dina? I will give you my thoughts. I'll have an internal deadline for the legal team. And then because I have to build in time that I need to process it to be able to give it to my business folks. What is it for? Why am I asking for this? Is it for the legal research file, in which case a larger memo is okay? Never a 100-page memo. I will never ask for a 100-page memo. But, or is it something I'm going to flip over to my CEO after I confirm that I agree with how something is written? In which case, if you write me a 10-page memo, that is not helpful unless there's a really good executive summary that I can copy and paste, modify a little bit. But the closer my outside counsel align to what I plan to do with that information, with those words, the better it is for me, and the more likely it is that I'm going to want to work with that lawyer again. They're building the relationship with me because they're giving me what I need. Normal, again, these are table stakes, but be responsive, be communicative. If you're going to blow a deadline, let me know. I'm a human too. I get it. You have a sick kid. I've been there, but don't say I'm going to give it to you Friday and 3 months from now you're like, oh, here's that thing. I'm like, no. Let's be responsive here. Yeah, there's so many things. I feel like I want Stephanie to talk too, because I think we're going to play off each other on this one, but I have more, Stephanie. I have more, but you may
Okay.
you'll say some things and it's going to cause me to think of more.
Well, I mentioned prior to us going live, this idea of making me feel old by calling me ma'am. Definitely don't do that. But just in general, that's something, but just a little tidbit. There's not many people that do that, but there is an outside counsel. He keeps doing that. So responsiveness, I think and this is something to just build in skills. It's not just with outside counsel, but you hear a lot as a young lawyers, like start working on these things for your internal clients, and your internal clients are your senior associates or your partners. And so I always found, even in the law firm world, but same as in-house counsel, when we're sending a matter to you, you know, if there's some kind of initial response that you can handle it, acknowledgement that you received my email, like and quickly, because we're busy, we're moving on to the next. And so if it's just hanging out there that it's been over 24 hours and I have no idea, do you have the ball? Like I've thrown you the ball. Do you have it? Have you caught it? Because I need to move on to the next thing. So responsiveness, and then responsiveness in your deadline, certainly. Like what you hate to get something back that then it's riddled with questions where, okay, so this isn't the final answer. You know, maybe it would have been better if we had communicated along the way to help get to that deadline. As Dina said, there's a lot of internal bureaucracy, or you know, there's different people that I need to go touch base with once I have your answer. So I've tried to build in some time, but if you're pressing me on my deadline, then that makes me uncomfortable. So and then I think, you know, budget, I think same with the communication. Like if this suddenly, you know, you're starting to go down a rabbit hole and it's just going to change the whole idea. And it may be that, you know, that partner had communicated with the client on the budget, but even just then raising your hand and letting the partner know that this is turning into a nastier issue, I think is something that you can help manage. So they can then, if they're the relationship partner, can manage those expectations with the client. But if you don't know, you know, you have to speak up and say something. So, and certainly I am usually looking for, you know, find out what the work product is that you want. I'm with Dina. I'm usually looking for bullet points in an email, rather than a formal legal memo. If I want a formal legal memo, I'll let you know. But just confirm that on the front end before, you go down the road, because there's sometimes you want a memo, but.
I'm going to add one more thing, typos. Let's talk
Oh,
about typos.
credibility out the window if there's typos.
It is true. And again, I'm human, so I get it. We can make mistakes. And that autocorrect thing keeps messing me up because whether I text or email, I'm like, what is this word? I didn't put that word and I didn't. I put a different word and it autocorrected, right? Just make sure you look at something one last time. I'm going to give an example. So there was a pleading that had to go in. The young lawyer was going on vacation. So she gave the work product to the partner that then went to me without really being reviewed by the partner. So probably about 3 typos in, I was like, 10 typos in, I was like, I'm calling the young partner on the case. 20 typos in, I was like, I'm calling the senior partner on this case. I can no longer trust a single thing written in this document. So just think about that. Like, again, we're human, we get it. I know there are some that are infamous for hating typos. One is a judge in the federal district court in Northern District of Texas right now. I think most people are more understanding than that, but just realize that the more errors that you have, the less likely it is that we're going to trust your work. And that is a problem for you and potentially your partner, potentially your firm.
Well, I don't want to be too negative about pet peeves, but let's flip the script. What are some of the concrete affirmative steps that outside counsel can take to become more effective? I think we've touched on a little of these, but what are some of the positives? What ways have outside counsel really shown they're more than capable, and why you want to give them repeat business? Stephanie, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, and I know we're running short on time, so I'll just mention I think my top 2, market knowledge and insight. And that's, maybe financial industry in general, but really almost more, what are our competitors doing? And not in the like, tell me all your trade secrets kind of way, but more of just, how are they approaching the issue? And so when you go in-house, the more time you're in-house, you start to have this kind of tunnel vision where you're just working for one client. And so you start to learn just this one point of view on an issue. So it's really helpful, to the extent, say you're lender's counsel and you're seeing in a loan negotiation, we're taking an uncompetitive approach, or there's something that we're doing that's not commercial. We're trying, as our client is trying to win business and wants to do deals with future borrowers. So that's a valuable tidbit or insight just on the legal side to say, hey, like, this is what I see other lenders doing or other clients doing. That's really interesting to me, and it's helpful as I'm losing sight of that the longer that I'm in-house. The other, and kind of related, is just being solutions oriented. And so we as in-house counsel are called to be, we don't want to be the department of no. We want to be a trusted advisor to our clients. And so to the extent you can help us do that by, it goes back to that, having like a narrow vision of it might be it's no, but maybe it's no, but if you did it this way, that would be a way to address it. Or maybe it's a yes, but where it's, yes, you can do this, but these are the guardrails that I would recommend around it. Those are both, helping us identify the risks that we may not have thought of, because that's our job as in-house counsel, is to be commercial, show creativity and flexibility so that whatever it is the client wants to do, we can try to help them achieve that goal while staying within a certain bounds of risk.
Dina, what are your top ways outside
Yeah.
really?
I liked everything that Stephanie said, and I think that's exactly right. Be solutions oriented. So solutions, not problems. I tell this to my kids all the time. Well, there's this problem. Okay, what's the solution, right? Become that trusted advisor. So one of the firms I work with, we changed the billing partner, so the one who is the one who funnels my work. And the way that ended up happening is just became a truly trusted advisor where I could have that person as a soundboard. And I'm going to say some words that aren't necessarily required for this, but I'm not always billed. We're just having a discussion here. Sometimes sometimes he's learning about my family, my kids. I'm learning about his daughters, that type of thing. So there's part of building a relationship that's not billable. And I get with young lawyers the concept that you got to bill all the time, but it does have to be balanced with things that also, I don't know, sometimes feed your soul, right? I feel like there's a lot of times the things I did outside of my law firm or in-house job fed my soul. The DAYL work, the Dallas Women Lawyers Association, the Texas General Counsel, attorneys serving the community, those fed something that I needed, which is a little bit different than what's required from a law firm. So those are things that I think about. The last thing, and this also is a variation on what Stephanie said, is no NTTA. I joke that if you know NTTA, you just know NTTA, because we're kind of specific, but I think that's true, frankly, for a lot of companies. You might have a competitor that would be similar. I mean, you're going to have a Verizon and an AT&T, right? They're going to have similar issues. I will say with those two different companies, you're not going to represent both. You will pick one or the other. Same with other types of competitors. But generally everyone thinks they're special when you're in-house. So do their boards, by the way.
Well, I think we're right at the hour mark and the end of time. And I don't see that we have any Q&A questions. So if you have one, quick submit it, and we'll see if we get it answered for our wonderful panel. But I'll give it a quick moment, but I'll quick conclude. The CLE number is in the webinar chat, so please make sure you write that down and check and get that so you get your CLE credits. But I want to thank both Dina and Stephanie for their insights today. I certainly learned a lot. I know everybody out there learned a lot as well. And thank you for your attendance. Feel free to reach out to DIYL, the Transactional Law Committee, or any of the committees. Get involved, join the Leadership Council, be active. We've got two very successful attorneys here who planted that seed early and have grown into a fabulous practice. So thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much. Really enjoyed it.
Yep. And I don't see any questions, so I think we'll end it right now. Thank you again, everybody.
Okay.